I, Haley Maxey, am interviewing Caroline Harmon as part of the Smithsonian's The Way We Worked exhibit in Florala, Alabama on May 8, 2014. Please state your full name and spell your last name and tell me where you live.
Carolyn Harmon, Harmon. I live in the big town of Florala, Alabama. You can't get here from there.
Do you understand that you are being interviewed as part of the Smithsonian's The Way We Worked exhibit and knowingly consent to doing this recorded oral history?
Yes.
May I proceed with the first question?
Yes, you may.
Please state your name and where you currently live.
My name is Carolyn Harmon. I live in Florala, Alabama.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Bessemer, Alabama, June the 23rd, 1942. My father was a triplet, and he was going into the service, and they decided they wanted the baby before he went in the service, and come find out instead of one, there was two. So there was twins, and my father was a triplet. And I was born in Bessemer, Alabama.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A nurse.
Has that changed any now?
Oh, yes, I'm afraid of blood.
What type of chores did you have to do as a child?
I was the oldest of four children. I had to wash dishes. I had to clean the house, and I had to help cook. And my one problem I had, and what I made a thing with my children, is nobody lays on my couch. Because my mother used to lay on the couch all the time and let the kids do all the work. So I don't let nobody lay on my couch.
What childhood memories do you have of your family working?
Working?
Yes, like your father, your mother, what did they do?
My father made white lightning. And he got where he could tell if the revenuers was coming. He could smell them, he said, 2 miles away. And when he made a lot of the white lightning, he had to sample it, of course. And when he got loop to loop, he would drive with one eye shut, and he'd outrun them all the time. They never did catch him.
And what did your mother do?
My mother did little of nothing.
Do you remember hearing your parents talk about their work?
No.
They never
My
talked
mother
to you?
didn't want to know how many bags of sugar he got or how much yeast. We lived back in the country then, and it's so growed up now, you can't even get back there. I was going to show my children where I was raised. Grew up, everybody from down that area went out of town.
Do you have any stories that you would like to share from when you did like your chores as a child?
Well, I would, as a child, the chores. My mother, we would have company. My mother says, "Oh, you don't have to help with the dishes." I do them. I knew good and well who's going to be doing them dishes. And so I would do the dishes. My sister was 5 years old. She's like some of the kids nowadays. Think she was too good to get her hands dirty or clean by washing dishes or dirty by cleaning the house. And where we lived, you couldn't go over there and turn the faucet on. We had the well. You had to get out there with a pump and pump it. And every time I tried to get the water out of the pump, I'd get shocked. And my dad, he'd go out there and go, "I don't know what you're fussing about. That ain't nothing wrong with that." And we didn't have electric lights. We had kerosene lights. And you had to make sure you had your homework done before dark because you couldn't see.
What was your first job outside of your home?
I worked at Lake Mortgage Company in Gary, Indiana as a typist, answering the telephone. The things that you see on TV where they plug in and plug out and all that, I don't know what you call them now, it's been too many years, but that was part of my job when the other one went on break or lunch.
Did you have any other jobs after that?
I had too many. When I worked at an American book distributor, in Lake Bluff, Illinois, where I did the billing, and where I drove 100 miles from my house, dropped my husband off, and then from he got off to go to work, then I drove 50 more miles, and it was snowed so bad, if you didn't know where the road was, you wouldn't make it. But the amazing thing is, we had bought a new station wagon, and it had S for slow and all this newfangled stuff on the car. And when I got back to pick my husband up, I says, I sure am glad they had S for slow, because I never would have made it. He says, what? S for super. He said, what, you didn't kill yourself. But I learned not to go on break and go spend all my money, because that day I went home with the snow up to my knees. And I ran out of gas, had to walk 2 miles, and I never went no more. I always make sure my car did not get less than half a tank. Even to this day, even though we do not have snow in Alabama, very seldom, I make sure my car never gets lower than half a tank.
Did you contribute to your family income?
They got all my check until I got married and left. Because I lived at home, didn't bought a car, but that was all.
What do you consider to be your main occupation or career now?
Right at this moment, I am a child care home provider. Have been since 1989. And when we came to Florala, Alabama, the reason we came to Florala, Alabama, is the Church of God sent my husband, Ralph Harmon, to pastor the church of God in Florala. And when he passed away in May 20th, which is coming up, 2009, he was an ordained bishop, which is the highest you can go. And he didn't want to get that. He was already ordained. But they changed it where if you were going to be able to vote in the big elections the Church of God had, you had to be ordained. So they had to move the ordained up to the ordained bishops. He said, I don't need that. I said, well, they offered it to you, you're going to get it. So he went in after it. Signed up for it, and he got it.
How did you train for your career?
Well, I was the oldest child for 4 children, and I have 2 children, and then in 2009, he died in May. I had a heart attack in June. At that time, I had a little girl that was 15 months old, and her mother left her at my house because she met a guy on the internet and did not come back and get her. So when I got over my heart attack, I went and adopted her. But we have to, now it's really changed. DHR has to come out and inspect your home, and you have to have so many hours of training, 21. Now, after all these years, you still have to have the training. And they have to make sure you got, and then the enterprise can come in and check your food. You got to feed a balanced meal. And I'm still in training after all these years.
What type of technology do you use for your child home care?
Are we talking about a computer?
Any technology that you
Okay.
have to use for it?
I use a computer, and if the kids know how, they can go on the what is that? Abby gets on it. I don't know what she gets on. She does the computer. But now, instead of the computer a lot, she uses the tablet. And she likes that a lot. I haven't learned how to do that. I don't really care to do that. But I use the internet for my menu, to do up my menu where I can send it into the state. And I do the look up games and handcrafts and stuff for the children to use.
How have your wages or your pay, how has it changed from when you got your first job till now?
Oh, when I first got my job, $200 a month. Can you believe that? And I only got paid once a month. And so Now, I get a lot more than that.
How did your work change over time?
The kids have gotten a lot worse. They don't mind. They got hearing problems. They all need hearing aids. The parents need to be said. Really and truly, who I have more trouble is some of the parents, not all of them, but some of them, is one lady called the other day and says, I don't care what they eat, if anybody gets sick, what they have to eat. What'd you do? You know, well, everybody else ate the same thing and nobody else got hungry. Sick, so it has to be the child just ate too much. Did I answer that question?
Yes. What do you consider to be your most meaningful professional accomplishment?
It is to be able to teach a child right from wrong, because they don't get that at home, and how to dress. They come in with their shirt on backwards or their pants wrong set outwards, and to help learn to get out of diapers. That's a big chore.
What effect did large events like wars, natural disasters, or other types of national or international disruptions have on your life and your career?
Well, my husband, before I got married, was in Korea. And then when my youngest son went into the Army, guess where he ended up? Same place my husband went in Korea. And that's called it. And what it has done to my career is make me to appreciate the United States of America and know how to worry about airplanes going over bombing. Even though every day dispatching see the helicopters practicing, or they go down to Lake Jackson and they jump off, and I always try to take the kids down there to watch that.
You said your husband was stationed in Korea.
Don't ask me where.
How did you deal with that while your husband was gone? Like, what
very
work
well.
did you do?
Very well. I wasn't married to him, didn't know him. But when Michael was in Saudi Arabia, now that's the one that was in Korea, that was a challenge, especially when the Scuds was flying over. All I can tell you is, if you've never prayed, you will pray. When you think your son's going to get killed, and he was in the shower when one of the Scuds went over, and he still has some health problems from being over there.
Do you remember any type of labor strife or problems between workers and management at your place of employment?
No, but when I was at school in Indiana, we would have the black and white would get in fights, and we often got to go home quite a bit. That's the truth now. You wouldn't.
How did you feel about organized labor?
I'm all for it.
How do you feel about the future of work in the United States?
If they quit sending it all overseas, we'll have plenty of work. But they like to get things done a lot cheaper, so they send all the work they can to Mexico or somewhere else. And it's our fault for buying the stuff that's not made in the United States of America.
What words of advice would you give to future generations about their careers?
About going into daycare, you better make sure you love kids, because you can't do the job unless you love the kids. Because there's always somebody that you've got to learn to love. But you really and truly have to love kids to be able to do the job the way it should be.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about not covered during this interview?
Now I can go in my other interview with my other job I had of being a Church of God pastor's wife.
How did that go?
Oh, that was very interesting. I used to be very quiet, very shy. I remember I got married in 60. I graduated in 60, got married in 62, and I had my oldest son in 64. So if that ever changed, then my own youngest son came in 6 years later. But the times have changed now with the churches, the way things do. People don't do like we did when we were pastoring church. If anybody was absent or if they were sick, somebody would check on them. Nowadays, they check to make sure your name isn't on the radio or the telephone to make sure you're not dead and got to go to your funeral. But we was always concerned about everybody, worked together, one big happy family. And if you hurt, we hurt. And it's a lot different nowadays. All politics.
Do you have any other stories that you would like to tell us at all?
One of the interesting things in being a pastor's wife is somebody invited us over to eat. So, all right, don't have to cook. Went over there, and when we got through eating, the woman put the plates down on the floor for the dogs to eat out of, the scraps. I went to the bathroom and got so sick, I said, don't ever invite me over there again. I'm not going, Harmon. Once was enough. And the most hurtful thing, I think, is whenever somebody invited us over to eat and we got there and they'd already ate. And they said, your food's on the stove. You can eat it if you want. So that was hard to get that food down. But one of the funniest things that happened to me, or us, we had just moved to Indiana, and somebody in the church had passed away, so we had to go. He had to be the director of the cars. They always followed the preacher. So we're going down the road, and we didn't have any idea where we was going to. Because where we came from, the police always led the pastor. So when we get to the road, and left, right, and the policeman pulls over there, and so I look behind me, I says, left, right, straight. The guy says, oh, no. And so I get out of the car. Now, you remember, we've got a bunch of cars behind us. I'm so shy. I get out, and I says, you come on up here. I have no idea where we're going. And my husband, like to have died, absolutely embarrassed him to death. And I says, well, it's better than taking him somewhere where we didn't know where he was going. And then I got to laughing. I says, can you just see us running around, running out of gas with this dead body behind us and don't know where we're going? And we finally have to say, well, I guess we might as well put him here. This is a good place to see him. He says, Carolyn, would you hush? And so that was funny. That was funny. But we had a lot of rewards and a lot of happiness. And I enjoyed it. I would recommend being a pastor's wife to anybody, and the daycare if you love kids.
Well, thank you for letting me take your time to do this interview.
You're welcome.